Righty. Slow minute. All right, let's go ahead and get started. People join. So first of all, thank you so much. Again, especially those who just joined. Really looking forward to this exciting session today. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Daniel 𝗪𝗲𝗄𝗧. I've been in the project world for about 26, 27 years. Been officially managing projects for about 20, 21. Most recently, a lot of my work revolves around the people-centered side of project management, or the human-centered side, as I like to call it. It's how many people know me, but certainly throughout my career, especially in the last year or so with my work, really trying to drive the human-centered side of project management further out, expand the conversations around that, especially with AI. I've met an awesome gentleman, John, and his team, Peter, who we've had a lot of conversations in the background over the last few months, because everyone thinks I just want to focus on the human-centered side of this, but certainly there are other aspects to ensure, obviously, that we drive successful projects and programs, and of course, delivering value. So before we jump into this, I certainly want to pass over to John. He's going to be certain to talk about the math component of this and kind of how we bring these two things together to leverage it successfully in the business world, the project world. So John, definitely introduce yourself, my friend.
Yeah, so my name is John Rubin, and I've been involved in the project management, portfolio management discipline since the mid 1990s. So I got involved very early on and was part of the first PPM product launch
Nice.
when a long time ago. So it's something of great passion for me, this whole discipline.
I love it. I love it. And again, for those of you who think I just talk about the people centered side, which I do outwardly, I do have numerous conversations with awesome people like John at the end of the day. But yeah, at the end of the day, one of the things that we're going to try to tackle today is really showing up for yourself, right? And really leveraging a lot of the things that we're going to talk about today to specifically set yourself up for the best position possible. And our project managers, a lot of times we like to talk about, if we had a seat at the table, what would we do, all these things, if we had more information, right? But lots of times, some of us do get a seat at the table. And, according to PMI and a lot of other groups in the data and AI and all the other good things, it does seem like we're going to have a lot more opportunities to have a seat at the table. So what happens when we do have a seat at the table, right? Again, it's nice to ensure that you have all the people skills, you're able to communicate, stakeholder management, you're able to lead with empathy, create psychological safety, all the things, of course, that really define the leadership portion of the role and the responsibility. But we also need the processes, right? We certainly know how to do the basics, the risk management, the change management, all the things that kind of go with that. And by combining those two pieces together, you're certainly on the way to have a great project management career. But there is certainly one thing missing, right? The part that John specifically brings to the table is the math, right? Because at the end of the day, it's great if you have all the people skills and you're able to do the basics in the more of the task management or admin functions of the job. But if you don't have the math component of this, when you walk into an executive room, they're going to look at you like you have three heads, right? And you have to make sure that when you are providing this data, of course, it's good and true and verified and all the other good things. But really at the end of the day, if you're not able to bring this stuff into the executive environment, if you do get a seat at the table, or if you even just get to have a crack of the door open, you need to make sure that you're coming correctly to these people, right? Because they have no time for this. They have 2 or 3 minutes maybe to listen what's required to get a decision from those people so you can continue moving your project forward. And of course, what's missing in kind of all of that, again, besides the people and the process part of it, again, the constraints specifically around this, right? If we don't have data to support a lot of the things that we're going to talk about, we're not able to bring these things early. We have to wait till at the end of the project when it's exploding already. We need to be able to, of course, leverage that data to ensure that we're able to create a proper trade-off, so that when we do have these conversations with executive stakeholders or sponsors, that we have some facts to back this stuff up. We can't just come in there with our ideas and all these crazy things that we're going to say. We need to make sure we run this stuff by our teams and the people closest to the project with us, and kind of put all these things together so we can help develop options for the stakeholders, especially the senior level and sponsors, so that they can make great decisions decisions as quickly as possible. So of course, in our own selfish benefit, we could quickly turn the project around, move it in a different direction, whatever the case may be, or just keep it moving as usual. Just making sure again that the people that we're talking to, especially at the executive level, have all the things that they need to be able to not only help us out, but to be great partners in the relationship between the executive sponsor slash just executives in general and the project management team or project manager, right? And we've all had environments, again, mentioning we all like to have a seat at the table. Many of us had seats at the table or some version of that, even if it was a peek through the door at some point. But we have these conversations lots of times, again, especially due to the nature of the executives having their 30 seconds. I've talked to people that had 2 seconds to talk to me in a hallway, right? So lots of times at the end of the day, they want to know, what can I do for you? How fast do we need to get it done? And you need to be able to provide this information as fast as possible. Lots of times they might come at you at a different way. They might have a scope change, or they might have talked to a client where, or maybe it's the client themselves, right? Where they have a potential option that they're throwing at you. And then of course they want the answer, right? How could this negatively affect the project? How will it affect the project? Will it affect the scope, the time, the budget, the resources, all the things that you would ordinarily expect managing the iron triangle component of the project specifically, right? But be able to give those answers to those people, you need lots of different things, right? Again, the people side is great. You need to be able to stay calm, decompress, take that deep breath that I always talk about in many of the things that I write on LinkedIn. You need to be able to leverage and grab your team, protect them, of course, while this stuff is going on, and ultimately sit down and calm down and make sure that we're able to put the information together that the people need from us in as quick, as fast, and efficient way as possible. And of course, you can only do that by bringing the math and the data into this. And if you don't have the ability to align these two things together, when you do, and if you do get that opportunity to finally get in front of that senior level stakeholder, or maybe it's just your sponsor or client, you're not going to have much success, and certainly it's going to severely detriment to your own personal credibility. It's not going to certainly help you get to work on. So again, there's multiple parts of course of this. And again, although I specifically harp on the human-centered side of this all the time, if we're not simultaneously leveraging the data and the math part of this, nothing else matters. You could talk to these people to death in the few minutes that you have, but if you're not supporting it by the facts and the data, as at least as good as data as you have, you're not going to get anywhere, right? And they're certainly not going to respect you. And if you walk into a room and you don't have some of this stuff, and you can't show them A, B, or C, or here's the 3 different things that we could do, here's the outcomes of them, here's how it could positively or negatively affect our project or projects, they're going to look at you again like you have 3 heads, and they're not going to consider you a respected project manager, because obviously at the end of the day, you don't have your crap together, right? So yeah, again, focusing certainly on the people and the process is great. You need to have the basics down, of course, for any good project manager. But again, in that environment, you need to kind of know what to do, where to look, who has the information, who has the data. And once you have all those things, certainly at the end of the day, you need to be able to figure out with your team how to put that stuff together so you can show these things to the people. And certainly math is not the part that I want to talk about today. So with that, John, certainly jump in, man, and kind of reinforce some of the reasons why the math is so important, at least from your perspective, since this is more aligned with you, and kind of how we could bring these two things together, especially in the environment of either senior stakeholder, sponsor, client, somewhere like that.
Well, I think it's sort of like you're building a credibility house,
Yeah.
right? And the credibility needs to rest on concrete, or it needs to rest on something really solid, something that's black
Yes.
and white. And that's the math. Those are the constraints, those are the dependencies, those are the things that you can't change. Once you understand those and you've got a good house built, well, then you know what you can build on top of it. But the interesting thing is if you ever build a house and you build a good foundation, and then you try and build a bigger house than will fit on the foundation, well, that's a problem. That's a big problem. So I think the executives expect that you're going to help them build the right sized house, and you're going to have the metrics to tell them when they're trying to build an extra room that's just not going to fit. So kind of a crazy analogy, but
It
having
nails
built
it.
a couple of houses, I've I think of that, and that's really what the math is all about. And
Yeah.
that's why we really think I really think it's extremely important.
No, dude, I could have said it myself. My family being instruction over 100 years, multi-generational. Whenever someone references the house building context, that's certainly it, right? Because at the end of the day, even if we have a nice, successful house or on our way to finishing a house, just adding an extra room on the side that hangs over the foundation is no good, right? Of course, we're gonna have many problems. But to John's point specifically, if you don't have a lot of this information and this data that's solid, provable, ethical, on it, like everything that you would imagine from the data, nothing else matters. You're not going to be able to get these people to move. You're not going to be able to get to them to analyze the different trade-offs that you and your team have put together. And of course, walking into a room with a smile on your face, having that 2 or 3 minute conversation with some of these stakeholders. If you don't have some of this stuff, or not some of it, if you don't have all this stuff on your ducks lined up in a row, again, you're not going to get the answer specifically that you need to move your project forward, or decision made, or a change of scope, or whatever the case may be. But yeah, again, both of these things are so important because beyond just managing the project itself, moving the pieces forward, leading the team, and all the things that come with that, there are numerous instances from the start to the finish where you actually bring a lot of that leadership experience to bear. But again, if you don't have that documentation in your pocket or via email or however you want to present it to the person that you're talking to, you're just not going to look good, and it's certainly not going to set the stage for much more of a successful career there. So again, as more and more of us get this opportunity to either have an opportunity at a seat at the table, a peek through the door, or just a full-fledged opportunity to work more closely with your sponsor and try to bring them in as a partner as opposed to just a one-off conversation here and there. You need to have
And
both of those things.
and also just as another point, from a management down standpoint, if you're running a portfolio and you've got a bunch of project managers that you're working with, or you just have a lot of JIRA teams that are underneath you working on a project, it's the same analogy, right? You're asking them to build something that's just really not buildable in the time that they need to be able to build it. So you're sort of, mismanaging both directions if you're not depending on those metrics, those milestones, those dependencies, those constraints.
And that becomes even more relevant when you have more than one project, maybe multiple projects or
Oh
prolific
yeah,
portfolio. So
absolutely.
now all of a sudden you have 10 nice. At one point I was managing almost 1,100 projects and programs and portfolios all underneath one umbrella. And the math became the single most important piece of this because, of course, you're managing thousands of different stakeholders, hundreds of different suppliers, again, in different environments for different people. But at the end of the day, it was the math that was required to be able to go to the board once a month or get decisions made on whether it be resources, more money, decisions made in different ways, advancing or expanding scope. Going in there with my nice shiny smiley face and my gray hair wasn't certainly going to get them to give me what I wanted. It required both pieces of this.
Yeah, and those are challenges that up until recently were very difficult to meet, but now the technology is there. The algorithms are there, the AI is there to interpret the results from the algorithms. So now you can do it. Used to be you'd have to
Yeah,
put it into an Excel spreadsheet and spend
yeah,
2 days screwing around with it,
yeah.
and it was really difficult. And who had the time for that? So sorry, but
Oh no, no,
there you go.
that's a great lead into what I was actually about to say because again, although we're talking specifically about the people, the process, and the math, combining those things together to really create an environment for trust and enable you to become that strategic orchestrator, right? We have AI here, and we can't not talk about that at any stretch of the imagination, right? 2026, although it seems like it's everywhere, it's really at its infancy, depending on where you work or what environment you work in. But again, data in, sorry, garbage in, garbage out, right? If the math and the data isn't right, the people aren't supporting it, aligning, making the human decisions and conversations related to the data itself, AI is just going to put more crap onto your plate at the end of the day. So we need to make sure there's two buckets on the screen are solid first before ordinarily you introduce AI. I've seen a lot of AI explosion stories recently.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think that as people are starting to engineer these systems, they need to be really careful that
Yeah,
they don't allow the subjectivity of AI to really
yeah,
ruin their careers. Because, I know that, the developers that I'm familiar with that are trying to approach this problem, what they're doing is creating the data with the algorithms and then putting really heavy walls around it so that the AI is just interpreting the data that they know is true. Because
yes,
otherwise, it can get out of control. When you start writing something with AI, what can happen?
yeah.
You've got to reread it because you don't know what it's going to come up with. And sometimes it's very funny, sometimes
Yeah.
not so much.
Yeah, and exactly right, because now again, because it seems to be everywhere, although it is everywhere, it seems to be everywhere, and especially in our world, right? The project management environment, you got to be careful, right? And this is why the math becomes even more important and the people side of it, because again, myself included, lots of times I'm using ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini or whatever the tool of the day is, and like John said, it starts to hallucinate, it starts to give you all kinds of stuff that looks so legitimate with references and links to all these different things that seem so official. And you click on them, it takes you to a Pizza Hut website. So if you don't have the people and the process part down correctly, the math parts, stuff within the limits of the math and the people and the process. When you combine that stuff together, especially as we are getting more and more access to the seat at the table, you have to be very careful in these environments, because if you just kind of throw this stuff in there, hoping that it's going to make some, be smarter than you or sound better than you, if you don't have the two or three foundational, the two buckets on top, you're just going to walk in there with crap. Again, you're going to lose your respect a lot faster than you ordinarily would, even without the data. So yeah, at the end of the day, you have to make sure that these things are solid before you even introduce an AI. You've seen lots of these stories all over the internet, depending on what research you see, up to 95% of IT projects or AI project implementations are failing, all the way down to, like 20%, but, even 20 or 30% is way too many. So again, in the construct of AI in 2026 and beyond, certainly as it grows, and we're going to see more and more of it in each of our roles and the businesses that we work in, even more important to make sure we have the math rock solid, as well as the people, the process skills, always going back to the basics of project management. But again, the people, of course, ultimately wrap all this stuff together. It's the people that are going to read and absorb and manipulate this data, being able to figure out how to present it in an efficient and effective manner to the senior stakeholders or sponsors. But of course, then the math comes into that. And if those two things aren't good, you're just adding.
Well, that's a really good point, is that, the AI should be helping present the options,
Yeah.
but the people need to make the decisions. It's
Yes.
just providing them with, information that they can rely on. And that's why you need that math, because it's black and white, and you either know that you're out of capacity or you're not,
Yeah.
and it is what it is. And that's the security that everyone in this audience needs when they're talking to an executive. They need to know what they're proposing, that it's really has a chance of working. Now, sure, stuff is going to
Yeah.
happen. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, what they say, what happened, stuff happens. But at least if you have the math in front of it, you've got a much better shot of it not happening.
Oh, absolutely. No, no, again, as always, man, we have I feel like we've had not enough conversations, but we've had so many conversations where that we like read
Yeah.
each other's mind almost. But no, I couldn't agree more with that, John. And at the end of the day, again, you can't argue with data. Of course, as long as it's good, it's been gone through all that other stuff. You can't argue with data. It's provable, right? And again, by leveraging your leadership and the people skills and kind of smashing those two things together, it really sets a stage for not only a very successful current career, but future career. And adding AI on top of that, making sure that those two bottom buckets are good. As we bring this stuff into AI, kind of keep an eye on some of these things, because there's going to be, just like projects now, there's going to be many instances where you're going to be forced to do things, or people think, oh, we have AI, we could do everything 100 times faster, which is which is true in a lot of instances. But we still need to remember, slow it down a little bit, right? There are people that need to kind of keep an eye, well, not kind of, they do need to keep an eye on this. They need to make sure the math and the data is right. And that again, you're making sure you're ethical, all the data is right, that you're not bringing garbage in. Like John said, there's guardrails on the side. The data that's there is the only data you need. It doesn't start bringing in data from all over the internet. You're not putting confidential information there. But yeah, at the end of the day, this is a very exciting time for the project management field, and to truly be successful as we start to get more and more opportunities, to get that opportunity at the table, or even again kind of peek into the door with the senior level stakeholders. These two things become really important. So sorry, can't talk. The career progression, right? So we kind of wanted to touch on, and again, some of this has to do with the level of experience, the length of time in field, depending on the industry where you work at, and kind of give you guys an idea of really where to wind up, or kind of how to get to the place where you are actually becoming an influencer. I don't mean social media influencer. I mean an influencer within the organization, where you're able to influence, especially the sponsor and the senior level stakeholders around you within your company, maybe at the client's office, or maybe some others cross-functional folks that you work on your project. So of course, we all start off at the messenger. Ordinarily, you're 0 to 3 years. You're just coming in. You're still getting your feet wet and trying to figure out exactly how to do things. Lots of times, the messenger is the one that's looking in the rear view mirror. All the status reports, all the data, a lot of the stuff that you use is stuff that's from 3-4 weeks old. It's not really front facing. You don't really have that experience or the skills, or maybe you have, but most people ordinarily, at least the ones I've talked to, don't have that experience and skill set yet to really kind of turn that stuff in the back, kind of smash a little bit of the people stuff, and really start to develop the forward looking thing. And that's kind of really where we get into right in between 1 and 2. One, again, the messenger really isn't able to provide the clarity around that, right? You're not able to really understand the value that you're trying to create within the organization. You're too busy focused on, did John do A, B, and C? Did Sally do 1, 2, and 3? Right? And again, lots of the data that you're having to support these projects, because you're always trying to do the right thing and check all the boxes and make sure everyone's happy and drive the project forward and protect your team and all the things that we, of course, ordinarily do within the project management field, especially in the first few years, trying to establish our career. We really don't have the foresight to start looking forward. And that's kind of when we move into the advisor role, right? The year of experience, level of experience, there's no number, no magic number. This happens for some faster than others, depending on the environment that you work in. But the advisor starts to develop your persona of actually starting to look a little bit forward, right? Of course, using the data and the math to support all your decisions, but it really now allows you to start looking much more deeper into the risk management, seeing things coming, looking at the different value creation metrics, really trying to see where things could potentially go, looking for opportunities to adjust, and creating and presenting different scenarios that enable you to start that process of really developing trust with the senior level stakeholders around you. This is where the math becomes more important. This is where this again becomes more important, because at this point you should have the core of your career down, right? You know exactly what to do: risk management, change management. You got the basics down. But now it's time to take that to the next level, where you're now really in the advisor capacity, where you're able to go to your sponsor and bring him 2 or 3 different options, instead of just saying, hey, this happened yesterday, what do I do about it? Or, hey, this happened and I think we need to do this, right? The advisor role is really a shift in the way you think and the way that you present information. And of course, this part here really is where you start to develop the trust from the outside. People, it's where you really start to build more of a legacy career. You affect those around you, and you really start to be looked at as a trusted advisor to the senior staff, especially the sponsor. And again, the math becomes super important here, because we don't want to use it just to tell you what burned down yesterday. We want to take that with the human-centered side, put those things together, and be able to kind of see into the future a little bit, right? And really present the facts and opportunities, and give the people around us, especially at the executive level and sponsor level, all the information they need with our own team, all the different work and things that
And
we've
they're
done.
all thinking about foresight. That's
Exactly,
what
foresight. Yes.
the executives are thinking about:
Yes.
scenarios and foresight. They want to know foresight. Now, there's no such thing really as foresight. That's like predicting the future, right? And that's a hard thing
Yeah.
to do.
Yeah.
But at least the math can tell you where you're not going to fall, where you're not going to fall on your
Yes.
face, and where your executive is going to fall on your face. So
Exactly.
that's where it comes into
Yes.
it. I mean, there's no miracle drug here that's going to save the project, but at least you can know how sick you are, and you can know what medicines maybe you can apply. And it'll give you the ability to run a scenario and say, well, this medicine's going to work from a financial perspective, but operationally, it's just not going to cut it. And strategically, you're way off base. And you look at all and the ability to provide all those selections, all those alternatives for an executive. That's what gets you to the influencer level. That's what moves you into the next category, because now you've got a seat at the table and they want to hear what you have to say. When you're the advisor, you're sort of at the table, and they want you at the table. They want you to give them the information they want. But now, as an influencer, they want your opinion, because you've shown that you can take all this information using the skills that Daniel's always talking about and the math, and bringing them together.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it any better, my friend. And again, yeah, at that point, you are like a trusted partner in the organization. You might not be
Right.
making strategy with those people, but they see that you're a person that they trust and respect to help guide them and influence them to make the decisions that are ultimately good for not only maybe what you're working on today, but maybe some other projects that you're not even considered yet, or maybe some of the strategic components of what the organization is working on. And there's some of the good things that come out of that, of course, are you might get some going on to the organization or some future past stuff, some more strategic stuff that's going on. So you can bring that stuff with your mindset and the math and of course the human centered side. So back to your project, so you could really kind of get that 30,000-foot view. So you're kind of not just stuck in the tactical job part of the job, that you actually put your strategy hat
Right.
on, and enables you to start seeing things and making different moves and opportunities, bringing the math in, bringing the team in. And of course, you now ordinarily have the support of the people around you. They know that if they call on you or if you knock on their door, you're not wasting your time, you're not wasting your energy, you're coming at
Yeah.
right with 2 or 3 minutes, you're in, you're out. They know exactly if they see John that you're going to get option A, B, and C. These
And
are things that could happen, and they're going to be able to make that decision and keep it moving, and you go about your job.
And the people that are working for you are going to have more trust in you because you're not
Yes.
going to be presenting stuff to the bosses because that's what the bosses want to hear. You're going to be
Yeah.
presenting reality to the
Yeah.
bosses. So when you come back with the work, it's work that they're able to do. So
No,
it's really it's both directions here. You know
yes.
what I mean? And
And
and in the end, maybe they're not going to get you promoted, these people that work for you, but they're your compatriots. They're the people that
yes.
the people that you love, that you work with every day, and you want to keep them happy.
Yes. I couldn't, and I'm glad that you brought that in, John, because when I got the influencer part, I didn't just want to talk about up, which is mostly what we're talking about today. I want to talk, I don't mean down, but like around us, right? The team.
Right.
Ultimately, as you start moving from 2 to 3 here, that the advisor to influencer, you're now affecting your team. Obviously, you do the basic psychological safety, protect the team, all the things we always hear all the time that we always do. But this is where you really start to do a few different things. You start to build a great legacy within your team, right? You start to affect the way that other people see around you. You're now shaping the way that their career is going to move forward. You're shaping the way and the way that they think and how they approach situations, and they start replicating that stuff in their own career. And then hopefully it goes on and on and on. Paying it forward, although it's not really kind of scenario for that, but you're kind of paying it forward to these people, and you're influencing their own behavior. And again, ordinarily that makes people step up more. And when they have a shift in thinking, because so many people still today, if you address the 50% burnout rate in the project management field, obviously something's being missed. We're too stuck in the past, looking at the messenger role, always looking at the task manager component of it. But if you actually want to succeed and be valuable and marketable in 2026 and beyond, you have to move closer to the influencer category, and that includes bringing your team with you, right? Because protecting them and making
Right.
sure they have what they need is great. But you should also, at least in my own view, you should be reflecting those values and those things to your people around you, so that hopefully maybe when you leave at some point or you go on to another project, that they inherently have learned and absorbed those things so that they can do the same thing, hopefully cutting down the time that's required for them to move through these stages, right? Which is great, right? Someone did it for me. I and as fast as we could get the entire project Magic CUNY, getting between 2 and 3 and more into the influencer role, especially as AI comes again here. People see it, they think it's the end all be all, that just because we have AI now. And with that false assumption, a lot of senior level stakeholders think because AI now is within our environment, things are just going to start clicking like this. And that's not the case. So we also need to bring some of these folks down to reality, but that can't happen if you're not in that trusted influencer role. If you come at them from stage one saying that stuff to them, or you're not bringing the data and the math with them, you're not going to have good outcomes from that. I promise. I've seen people do it. It's not good, but yeah. So again, just wanted this conversation is so important because it is 2026 and AI is here to stay. And there's just so many things that are happening around it. So many people are worried about their job and trying to figure out how do they, one, stay marketable, two, be able to compete, three, have a seat at the table. And when they do finally get it, how to act and engage in that environment. These are the ways to get there. We could probably have this conversation for 200 days. There's just so much great stuff we want to pack into there, but we certainly want to hear from you guys more and kind of see, we're not over yet, but kind of see what you guys thought about some of this stuff and what you guys are seeing in the field. So with that being said, we kind of wanted to throw it back into the audience, right? We don't want to talk all day. We wanted to kind of see what you guys are seeing, right? Are you guys seeing some of these things? Where in your own particular career, your field, the level of experience that you have, what are the conversations that you guys are having, right? Really, I hate to keep saying, oh God, I'm driving myself crazy saying that. And I said it again. So what are you guys seeing in the environment? Again, if you want to come off mute, certainly go ahead if you want to leave in the chat. Peter will pick it up if you guys have any questions about any of that stuff. But certainly want to hear what pressure moments. More again. I'm reading it. There's research all over the place. Everyone on LinkedIn, everywhere where I'm looking, it seems to be that more and more people are having access to the seat at the table, or are on the way to getting. It might even be because of a new AI project or an implementation at the PMO level. But again, if you're not in this environment now, or even putting AI aside, where are you guys at when you are coming to speaking to the executives? Are you approaching or in that influencer level? And if tell us if we're completely way off base, right? Whatever it is, I want to hear the questions, comments from anyone in this room. Certainly, do not hesitate. If you don't want to come off camera, certainly you could just leave a question, comment in the chat. I can't see the chat. Peter, go.
Alison, bravely asking your first question, Daniel. Do you want to?
Well, it's not a question. It's not a question so much as it's my current dilemma. So, so we are transitioning a financial implementation, and we're trying to get executive decision making so we can get out of move our way out of hypercare and move them to an operational sustainment model. But they have to make decisions about resources and who's going to do what. And when does the PMO stop babysitting the central offices and helping them through all their problems and issues? And when do they take over? So that's it's a dilemma, because it's like, yeah, I can make recommendations, but this is your scope of work. These are your people. This is your responsibility. I can't, this implementation has been almost 4 years. It's like, at some point, I got to move on to another project, right? So getting them to, kind of take ownership of their problems.
But are their problems a capacity problem, or their problems?
Yeah.
What are their problems? So is the problem is the visibility as to what their capacity is relative to what they need to get done? Because that's a math problem. That's you just sort of like, thank you. You could have done the webinar instead of me, because you're actually living it right now.
What she was saying, the question,
you're living what I'm preaching about. So thank you. That's perfect.
And we have to, cut the cord on the consultants, because we have to release them. The budget's running out, and it's like, you're not going to have these people to lean on anymore. Who's going to do it? And we've got some all-stars. We've got some all-star people that are saving the day, but it's just not sustainable. And
the first thing you have to do is figure out what what's the delta, right? And the only way to do that, again, is to add stuff up. I'm like a recording machine saying the word math. But in the end, until you know what your deltas are and where they are, then you can't create options. And then once you at least have options, you can go to the executives and say, look, this is not a pretty picture, but these are the different ways you can paint it. So tell me how you want me to paint it, because you're the executive. The math doesn't lie. You know what I mean? It's not an opinion. You know what I mean? That's the thing that gets me, is that, people in the project management discipline keep getting beaten up because they're asked to give opinions, but they don't have the data to really form those opinions. So they're doing the best they can. And then the executives say, well, why didn't you give me the right opinion? Well, that's why you need the math.
Exactly.
That's why you need something to do it. I mean, the larger companies are doing it the hard way. What they're doing is they're taking everything out of their project management system, pumping it into a spreadsheet, working on it for 3 days, and then they're getting some semblance of what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about, something that's been packaged, and there's products out there that do it. You just need to find that, that thing to do it with, because otherwise you're just going to keep running round and round where you are, Allison.
Right. And we've provided them. We've got the RACIs. We've got ticket numbers. We show who's assigned to what defects and change requests and tickets. And we say, okay, and they've got their all-stars, and they've seen the numbers. One person, they've got 77 tickets, and they're the lead.
Yeah.
And so it's like, How, and so then like, how does that person
That's great
delegate?
data, but you got to put the data into a context, right? You have to put it into
Yeah.
context. That's sort of what algorithmic, research does, right? Is it takes all those constraints, dependencies, what's been done, what needs to be done, how fast are people working, all of that, and it brings it all together instead of taking like 4 days to figure it out. Now that
So
we
what
have
are
the
you guys
map, and we have
using? What do you
what?
use to do
We're
that?
using
What are you
algorithms.
using?
I don't want to mention a product just because, it's not a product conversation. I'd be happy to talk with you about it afterwards. Just look me up on LinkedIn. I'd be happy to speak with you about it. But really, this is about something that, Daniel and I really feel strongly about from a, personal perspective. That, people in your discipline, EPMOs, PMOs, portfolio managers, even project managers, they're somewhat blinded by the numbers. There's just too many of them now. And the problem is things are changing so quickly that it makes it even more difficult. I spoke with a scenario planning expert. He used to do them, he'd do scenario planning for a large company once every 18 months. Now he does it every month.
Wow.
Tariffs, weather, all manner of, you know what I mean? It's like, we're back in Egypt, the plagues are hitting every week. And every one of them has an impact. And you just have to be able, you can't stop them from happening. You just have to be able to assess the impact and what your options are.
Yep.
And this is the aspect of scenarios that John is describing. And from a process or practice perspective, Daniel, I'm sure you'd call out the idea here is that you're using context to convey a potential future. So Alison, you may think about a couple of futures for that target audience to show them what things could look like when they don't make that decision. All these consultants that you point out suddenly no longer available. That ticket queue, what happens to it? So one of the nice things about context or scenarios is that it allows you to show them a possible future. Let them walk a minute in that future and then figure out if they really like that or not. The only other alternative we have is to wait until that future becomes real, and then we're in reaction mode. Yeah. So a lot of what we're talking about here today is to use your process skills, your people skills, augmented by depth of math, which all project managers are great at, but to build that into a scenario and a context that allows an executive to understand what you're saying. And I think you called this out in your response earlier, where you said the influencer is the one who is asking for that decision. So really what we're trying to do is frame that decision. You're trying to show them a context. This event, maybe it's an executive pressure moment that's here on the screen, or it is a prioritization tension. Something is happening. This event will occur. These people will no longer be on staff or something else. And you need to help them understand what that could mean to them. And 𝗵𝗿 talks about this from a value delivery perspective. Yeah, there's a lot of aspects you can bring in, process or practice-based, or just purely software-based, that we can all collectively make that decision and that potential future more visual and more personal, because decisions are personal.
Couldn't have said it any better. You guys nailed it. You guys nailed it. Yeah, literally. Like even as you were saying to Alice, because I've been in that same exact situation, especially when you're talking about having like a third-party contractor or supplier, especially if they've been there many years, and whether by design or just from people working there, people just kind of like lean on them for whatever reason, especially the good ones if it's one of the big fours. But yeah, no, exactly what Peter and John said. That is exactly it, right? All the things that we talked about, being able to kind of put all this stuff and bring it together to be able to have candid conversations. Again, leveraging some more people skills, but bringing all those things together to be able to have candid conversations with the senior leadership team or whoever's ultimately responsible for absorbing some of this stuff and helping to realign or align this. At the end of the day, if it's happening, it's going to happen no matter what. Might as well try to get in front of this stuff by bringing a lot of these things together. So always better to deal with it up front as opposed to after the fire happens.
Right. Someone asked me several days ago, well, what happens if the recommendations that you're giving them are like sort of, telling them that they're not going to get what they want? You know what I mean? That they're not going to reach their goals, that they're not going to, well, you have an obligation to be honest with them. Yes. And by being dishonest with them, they're just going to ask you to go do something that you now know that you can't do. So what would what do you prefer? I mean, there's no good answer, but at least you have a real answer now. At least you can say to them, well, no, we can't do that, but if you did this, we could. Or if you didn't do this one, you know, and maybe there is a way to shuffle it out. Maybe you shuffle something else out. You know, it's asking them the question, okay, well, what's your priority? You have 10 things that you want. We can only do 7. Now you're the executive. You need to prioritize. You tell me what priority you want. I'll tell you which ones we can do because I have the math. I can do that.
Yep.
Over the last 4 years, I have earned the reputation of being the one to invite to the meeting when you have to tell somebody no. It seems to be it's my superpower. It's my no, we can't. Sorry, no, we're not doing that.
I've just met you, but that just doesn't surprise me at all, Allison.
See, that's real influencer mode when you get to that level, and you're
right.
But no,
yeah.
That was a really good question because it kind of brings into
great question
all the things that we've been talking about in reality, right? Like not just abstractly how we're talking about it, trying to make sure that we can try to get as many things as possible into 30-35 minutes. That question kind of nailed each one of these things. Is again, even lots of times, you know, we see reality, like you said, I think 70-75 tickets in one. You know, one of the weird thing is, again, they're probably a rock star PM, but we consider that being rock star status, not you and the team, but like for others, like why did that person have 75 tickets? That's completely unmanageable. Maybe some people have no tickets. By putting that data together and really seeing, using data to see what is actually truly happening. Because lots of times everyone looks busy. I see emails, I get messages from people all the time. It looks like everyone's underwater. And then I come to find out by doing the actual research, doing math, using AI to leverage that and be a little bit more efficient on the way that we do that, that maybe some people actually aren't working that much and some people are overworking. And maybe we could try to shift.
Yeah.
Maybe we don't actually need to hire 4 people. Maybe we could actually get rid of 2 or you know, hopefully we don't want to get rid of 2, or maybe we can reposition those 2 people. Maybe they could be a senior person now. Maybe instead of being kind of a PC or a project coordinator, maybe now they could be a BA because they like to work with the math and the data. So just having that data, that core baseline data, and then of course the people skills that wrap around that, it just gives you so many options and opportunities to really put a great story together with all the possibilities, all the different things that may or may not happen, the costs and all the things associated with that. Because at the end of the day, the faster you bring it, like John said, don't lie, of course, bring this stuff. It just makes you look good, even if they don't want to hear it. It's what it is. Reality's reality, right? And you know, if they slap your hand for it, bad on them. But ordinarily, people accept that and respect it. And that really, having those conversations a little bit more difficult than saying, hey, I'll do whatever you want. That builds your credibility, at least in my own personal story, faster.
And that's the people skills, is being able to relay that.
Yes.
And I'm pretty confident that if you tell them the bad news, that they're going to walk, they may act angry in the beginning, but they're going to walk away and they're going to say, thank God I just dodged a bullet. Because Allison just told me I just can't get it done. And she showed me exactly why. So now whoever I report to, whoever I have to talk to, stockholders, whatever, I think I just dodged a bullet. So they may appear angry, but they can't help but be grateful that you gave them the reality, because it's immutable. You either have more work than you can do or you don't. You know what I mean? I mean,
Here's an aspect of that question maybe coming in from the chat. You can riff on this and maybe build in the past conversation as well. The question is, how do I move from messenger to advisor? And maybe you can take the next step, which is advisor to influencer. But first and foremost, you talk about data, you talk about credibility, you talk about not getting, the messenger gets shot when they give the message. But guys, from your perspective, how do I move from one step to another, or one level of credibility to another?
Oh, certainly, I'll address the people side first, right? The easiest way to go from 1 to 2 is to do the basics, right? Again, ordinarily, this could take a few months, a few years, but doing the most basic things. You want to earn trust and credibility. I have a problem with this in my own business, and someone on the call will certainly attest to that. But in the work world, if you say something, do something. If you say an email will be out the door at 5 o'clock, make sure it's on a Tuesday, make sure it's out the door. If not, let people know, right? I know that sounds so simple, but when you do little tiny things and then you accomplish them, or if you have a challenge with them, you update them so they always know what's going on, and then just start to do lots of those things over a long term, and then just add on to different things. Start as you start to get that credibility from your team and the people in front of you, and start leveraging data and start to use it in a way that, again, you're not always looking backwards, because you know you've done the right things to set the project up for success. But again, doing what you say, building trust, those things are not that difficult to do, and they start with little small steps. The flip side of that is one little tiny thing could damage tons of years of that. So again, you have to continue doing that, obviously, right? But yeah, again, really, as you go from like 2 to 3, at least from the people side, that's really where you have to really hone those emotional intelligence skills. Because lots of times, ordinarily, throughout that part, you've probably not picked up larger projects. You work at different companies. You're working with maybe bigger clients now, so you're dealing with a lot more personalities, a lot more things going on. So not only are you protecting your team, yourself, your job, you're dealing with account managers and clients and stakeholders at your company and their company, and it just gets bigger and bigger over time. But yeah, just being able to have good conversations with them, make good decisions, use data to support these decisions, and really get people to start believing that if they partner with you and really become a true partner with you, always shared wins, leverage stuff in the concept of this is our thing, we're succeeding as a team. All of these little things combined over months and years and projects and people and companies, eventually, at least from the people side, start to get you from step A to B to C. Not very quickly in some instances, but certainly get you to the board. But certainly invest in the people-centered side, of course, the mass up, but and also do a lot of self-assessments, right? This is the core of emotional intelligence. I journal. I've been journaling forever. If you look at my room, I have journals all over the place. I usually spend about 15 minutes before work journaling, and what I do is I try not to focus on yesterday. I focus on where I'm at today. Maybe at lunch for 5 minutes, after after work, I kind of journal the decisions I made, who I interact with, what I notice about myself, things I have to work on. Not so project specific, but really my realization of what it looked like. End of week, I wrap it all up. I look, see if there's any things I could change, how people perceive me. And each one of those things, I know this sounds crazy, but when someone told me to do it and I did it, it changed the way people react and work around me. And it opened up my eyes to something that I didn't even know existed. But the faster you could get to the self-realization, self-awareness stage and get moving to the people, imagine how people more observe you and interact and want to be around you, including senior stakeholders, you'll quickly move through that list really quick.
Thanks, Daniel. Good insights. Yeah. Self-assessment, spot your gaps, know what you're trying to get from A to B. I think those are good insights.
Yes.
John, any additional points you'd throw in there?
No, I think Daniel did a great job of describing it. I think you just have to have the tools to allow you to leverage that.
Yep.
I think actually what Daniel's talking about is really the tough part. The math part is easy. It's black and white. It's just for some reason it's been ignored.
Yeah.
Maybe because it's become so difficult. I mean, it really is difficult. I mean, there's so much of it, and it's so complex that I think people just gave up on it. They just like, we're not going to be able to do this. And the big companies have the resources to spend 2 days on an Excel spreadsheet, but the average company doesn't. And the Excel spreadsheet doesn't even work that well anyway. But technology's changed, the world's different, and now we can do it. Yeah. So that's why I think it's a topic that now is coming up more. Yep. I think 4 years ago, no one was talking about it because there was nothing that would do it. You got 1,000 projects and you're trying to calculate the constraints and dependencies. It was just impossible. But now it isn't. It isn't impossible. So
yeah, especially like tools like Jira. I mean, obviously some people don't have access to that, but just even look at programs and portfolios and being able to see that 30,000 foot view of all those different things and the math and the people side,
right?
The things that go beyond that in and of itself shortens that from there all the way. I can't remember the terms to the influencer, right? But yeah, again, the people side. When you combine those two things together, leverage technology. You don't have to become a data programmer or software programmer, but leveraging the technology in a way, leveraging your human-centered skills in a way that is useful for you, that doesn't add more time or work to your plate, but just find a way. Every single tool I've ever used, I found different ways to make it efficient and effective and still keep an eye on my team and manage projects and give me what I need. The minute you're spending that 2 or 3 or 4 days putting an Excel file together, that is always looking at stuff from the past. That doesn't give you the opportunity to do what John's talking about, looking to the future and creating different scenarios and things like that. So the quicker you can move out of that phase, especially you starting your career and really understanding yourself, how you are, how you think, how you deal with people, how people perceive you, and try to kind of keep an eye on that. all of that going into any senior level stakeholder conversation, especially as you get into bigger and more cool projects and more expensive projects. And just sets a stage for a really great career. And of course, those around you, it just builds a nice little legacy. And mentor people along the way. Don't ever forget that. Mentor, coach people along the way.
Strong message, yes. Mentoring along the way. I know you've got one or two slides, possibly one left to go.
Yeah,
so
one more.
last question, rapid fire. If you only have 10 minutes with an executive, Daniel, what's the thing that you do to drive that decision?
Oh, well, that's a good one. Oh man, now it's taking me 10 minutes to think about it. There's so many variables because obviously I have good relations with these people, but yeah, ordinarily, you know, I would pitch it in the, you know, either the view of the benefits or just, hey, here's two or three things. We've done all the work. You don't have to think about it. And ordinarily, I built a relationship with these people and the trust that they know when I'm presenting options to them. I've done the due diligence. I've done the work. I got the math. I got the team.
Right.
Stuff. And yeah, that's it. Ordinarily, I get a decision I want, even if it's not the one I want. It's the one I want anyway, right? Because then
Yeah, give them options and give them consequences, and I think they're happy.
Yes, consequences.
Yeah,
yes.
options and consequences. And if they know that you really did your homework and the numbers are right, then they're going to be appreciative of that. They may not show it immediately because the options may not be like Allison, the options that they wanted to hear. But in the end, they're going to be appreciative. They can't help but be appreciative because you're giving them the real deal. And you're not just giving them, well, no, we can't do it.
Exactly.
You're saying, no, we can't do it the way you want to do it. Here are some ways it can be done. It may not be exactly what you want, but here are the options. And maybe they'll ask for more options, but that means a dialogue, and that's a good thing. That's when you do become that advisor because they're dialoguing with you instead of just asking you for data.
Yeah. No, lots of times, whenever I have an interaction with a senior level stakeholder, I try to make it decision meetings only at 2-3 seconds. Also, I learned something a long time ago. This might sound crazy. The yes, if, like, yes, I can certainly do what you want. If this, and this. But it kind of goes into what John just said. The back end of that is, here's the 3 options. Here's the consequences. Here's the outcome.
Right, exactly.
Or at least what we've observed and compiled to our best effort to present these scenarios to your situations.
Thank you both.
Good question.
Okay. Takeaways.
Oh, sorry. Back to me. Yeah, so obviously this is the last slide, so we're wrapping this up. But yeah, I mean, obviously at the end of the day, projects are about people, right? The math is super important, AI, all that other good stuff we know, but people deliver projects. People lead projects, people deliver projects. And of course, the people we need around us and above us to help us enable these decisions and create this value are people also, right? So people open the doors, certainly focus and practice on your people skills. But again, when you finally do get that opportunity, especially with clients or senior level stakeholders, sponsors, executives within your own organization, it's the math that earns the room. When you combine these two things together and you're really able to really understand yourself, bring the math to bear, and create options and opportunities to present super fast. Sometimes it's a hallway, you're walking past someone in a hallway, right, depending on who they are. If you're able to do that effectively and efficiently, and start mastering this. I used to practice this in a mirror all the time. My wife used to think I was crazy, but I became really good at mastering the 30-second or 60-second, all the things we just said, boom, get a decision and walk out the door because they know I did the work I needed to do to require to make that decision quickly. And then of course, AI, not going anywhere. It's getting better and better every day. We're going to hear it or see it in our own work. Make sure that when you're doing AI or implementing, or at least you're thinking about it or considering different products and services, make sure that you have the first 2 right. If not, at least continue to focus on those things. So when you do build and implement these systems, you have these things in mind, that you're not pulling in crap from all over the place, that your people are solid.
Right.
You're taking care of them along the way because people think they're going to lose their job. And in some instances they may, but flip that on its head. Consider this as an opportunity for project managers to really take their career to the next level. Because if you just stay at that task manager, that first stage we talked about, you potentially may not be marketable in the next few years. So move quickly, learn the math, learn AI, at least get a high level understanding. Not every tool, like, you don't need to know everything, but at least get a good solid understanding. But by combining yourself for a really, really good career and certainly be more marketable. John, please add anything to that. Peter.
No, I think that you said it all. I think that the people skills and the ability to master a process is really paramount. And you just need the tools to support you. And in the end, that's why software was created, right? And my business, I've been in the software business for 30 years, and it never did everything. It always just supported decisions. It always helped make better decisions. It doesn't make the decisions. And math is the same way. Math is just software anyway. Software, math, or one is the other. So I think the combination is a good one.
Yeah, no, couldn't agree more. Peter, you have anything? Any of your great comments you always have?
Well, I think one of the takeaways mentioned in the chat was that it's all about finding good ways to visualize data in meaningful and in interactive ways. And if you do have those executives for a couple of minutes, have a medium that can talk to them, show them, and maybe earn that next step to get a longer meeting. So you don't want to try to give them a 30-minute meeting in 5 minutes.
No.
You got to earn that step.
Don't suggest that. Definitely not. But no, like,
well, that's where the AI comes in, because you can have all this math and it can visualize it for you. And the products that I've seen out there do a really good job of that. They look at the data, and then the executive can literally just ask a question in English. Which one's better for me in this regard? And it's going to come right back and visualize it for them. And I think that's really that's powerful.
Yeah, and
that's where AI can be really powerful, because it can take data that, it's like when you first started seeing that translation software, you could go from Spanish to English instantly. That's exactly what AI is now doing with the mathematical data that you have on projects and programs. It's basically taking this morass of data, it's all organized now because of the algorithms, and then AI is the translator. And the executive can use his language. He can say, okay, well, I have a choice between these two projects. Which one should I do? And the AI is going to come back and say, well, strategically, this one's better. Operationally, this is better. And from a cost standpoint, this one's better. Now make up your mind, Mr. Executive.
Yep.
But in his language, in her language, That's, I think, the power of it. That's what, certainly engages me about these types of solutions, is that they help us use our brains more effectively. It's not replacing your brain. It's helping you to just use what you have, those innate skills that you have, more effectively in the benefit of your career and of the company that you work for and everyone around you.
Yep. I could not agree more. Again,
I'm not bashing AI. I just think that AI needs to be working on the right data.
Yeah, that's one.
If you're writing a book, it's really great.
Yes, that's literally what I was going to say, John. Make sure it's working on the right data, because as we all know, just throwing all your project plans into ChatGPT is not what we're talking about. That's something complete. That's called chaos. And
that's chaos, right?
So make sure, again, it doesn't have to be like some kind of $1 million software tool, but certainly just be smart. Be smart what you're doing. Certainly, definitely don't put confidential information into any of these tools, unless it's, of course, a product within your organization. But yeah, just be smart, right? And at the end of the day, the data supports, 20 to 80% of your job is going to be taken by AI. Again, to me, it's just another opportunity. Even if
these tools are not like super expensive tools.
No, some of them are really, really
cheap. They're decision support tools. They're tools that they're not, you've already done all the work because you've got your project plans. You've done all the work because you've got your portfolios built out. It's these are just helping you interpret all that data.
That's a good part. And it for all your projects in there, your past projects, all that good stuff, and it just enables more and more and more better decisions for you, your team, the around you, and each piece of data you put into there, as long as it's real, legit, and good, it's just another opportunity for you to look smart when you're sitting at that table. So awesome. Well,
I love Allison's last comment here. I could use ChatGPT to make my emails more polite. Okay.
We just had this conversation the other day.
Me too. I do use it for that, actually. When I'm posting on LinkedIn, when I get very upset, I just sort of, I say, ChatGPT, tell me how I need to say this. So it's a very good point, Allison. Yeah. But that's a very subjective thing again, right? You don't want AI making objective decisions. You know what I mean? You want it to do the subjective stuff. Then it's great.
Yeah, just a little polish.
It's so funny. We just talked about this.
My favorite prompt is keep this direct but polite.
Yeah, sounds like mine. Definitely sounds like mine. Peter,
we have a really good comment here where he says, one of the strong takeaways from this discussion is the ability to visualize data in the meaningful and interactive way, discuss and explore it, ask questions together, and land on realistic and trustable solutions. This is where people and math all complement each other.
Wow, that's good.
That's perfect.
That's
He
something
should have been doing this.
sentences.
He should be doing this webinar, not me.
I know. Well, I'm going to be
Well
getting
done.
John and Peter to do a lot more of these, so we're going to have lots more
Great.
things coming. So, and we're going to touch all different topics around this, get a little bit deeper into some of these things. But stay tuned. This is only beginning. Expect to see more. There needs to be more conversations like this, especially with people being
Absolutely.
job. We have to have more conversations like this. So certainly from my side, if there's no more questions, really appreciate you all for being here today. And of course, for the support as always. John, thank you so much. Peter, of course, always, man. Looking forward to having more.
Please feel free to reach out on LinkedIn if you have any more questions, or I can love to be connected regardless.
Same.
Keep the conversation going. Keep building the community. Take care, folks.
Exactly.
Daniel, have a good weekend. We'll talk
you too,
later.
my friend. Talk soon,
Okay,
guys.
thank you. Okay, bye-bye.